Following is a true story. Only the names have been changed to protect the anonymity of the eyewitness themselves. Listener discretion is advised. Back in 2016, I saw some strange creature. I was working at the Dollar General Distribution Center north of Ardmore in Genotry, Oklahoma. I worked the night shift and my uncle worked the day shift. A year prior to all these experiences, my aunt and uncle bought a 10-acre plot of land in Springer, Oklahoma, near Lake Scott King. This small 10 acres had a lot of trees, and the house sat at the back end of the property, so you would have to go through this long, winding dirt road to get to the actual house with woods on either side of you. And on the main road itself was the original house that sat on the property. It was dilapidated and grown up with weeds, and half the roof had fallen in and part of the wall was gone. This is where my uncle and I saw two yellow glowing eyes. My uncle saw it first. One day he had gotten off, and it was when it gets dark earlier in the day. He got off at 4, ran some errands in town. It was dark by the time he got back. The person who he rode with dropped him off on the main road, so he had to walk down this dirt road to the actual house. He said that he saw this, whatever it is, like kneeling and standing up, watching him. I took all this with a grain of salt. Even though my uncle's not a liar. But I do remember an incident that happened when I was a kid, around the same area. My family all lives out in Springer. I saw what looked like a cow in an orchard, but it had ears that went straight up on the top of its head like a wolf's. I was about 60 yards away. I see this creature and somewhat pay it no mind, but I'm transfixed all the same. Suddenly, as if it knows it's being watched, it looks over at me, then simply walks to a tree, on all fours, mind you, stands up on 2 legs. After it looks what I thought was directly at me, it casually walked up to one of the trees in the orchard, on all fours, mind you, stood up on its back legs and picked a piece of fruit from the top of the tree. I tried to explain this to my mom and dad, but they were having none of it. Even though my dad did give me some weird look, as if he knew what was going on. I never got around to asking him. Anyways, this property where I stay with my aunt and uncle, they said it was haunted. A lot of people said it was haunted. I think that's why they got such a good deal on the property itself. But nonetheless, my uncle saw this creature, whatever it was, said the eyes stood above him. This glow from the yellow eyes was above his head. My uncle's 6'1". I tried to explain to him it could have been anything. It could have been a raccoon crawling on that broken piece of wall. But again, he insisted that it was something unusual. He said that the eyes were spaced too far apart for it to be anything that's natural around southern Oklahoma. Well, eventually, my car stopped working, so I had to bum rides to work, working on overnights. It's hell in a factory. The guy I was riding with was a recovering alcoholic, but he had fell off the wagon. So every night after work, he'd have a 6-pack of beer in his lunchbox. And in between the ride to his house, which was a little bit north of mine, and him dropping me off, we'd polish off about 3 beers apiece. 12-hour shift, a lot of physical labor. I mean, I'm not trying to justify it, but it is what it is. I mention that only to say that I was under no intoxicants outside of drinking 3 beers really quick. He dropped me off on the main road that leads to the dirt road going up to our house. He dropped me off on the main road so he wouldn't have to take the winding dirt road all the way to the house, and I didn't mind too much. But as soon as he drove off, I heard rustling coming from that old shack that was set about 30 yards away from the main road. Again, this house was dilapidated. Roof had fallen in, part of the wall had fallen, but the rooms all seemed to be intact. It also had a basement. I don't know if there's any significance to that, but there was always strange noises coming from it. And on the whole property, there's this weird feeling, but especially around that house at this point in time, It was almost like something was going to reach out and grab you if you were there at night. So I see these eyes, and as my uncle stated, it would dart up and down, disappear and reappear. But it was watching me, I knew that for certain. I didn't waste any time. I took off at a dead sprint, only looking back once when I actually passed the house. And when I did, I saw a big, dark, black figure with those yellow eyes jump through the broken piece of wall and head straight for the tree line to my left, the one closest to the main road. I could hear it barreling through that little strip of woods after me. Either that or it may have been my heart, because it felt like I was going to die at any moment. I burst through the front door, and my uncle was there. He looked at me and he knew exactly what was going on.